Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Wednesday edition of Sidelines from the College Football Blitz. Got a great show lined up, broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota over here, 45 minutes from Wynn to Memphis to Wynn. Either way, it's 45 minutes. They're open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and the service department's open on Saturdays, 7 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. 25 service bays. You don't have to wait long. Austin Futrell and the crew, they are in here early. They love what they do. They do what they love, okay? It's very important, you'll find in life, when you see people who love what they do versus people who just begrudgingly show up to work, if they show up at all. But next 2 hours, we'll be with you talking a lot of college football. Got a great lineup. Mitch Davis, the MitchDavisShow.com, is batting in the leadoff position. Jimmy Hodge checks in from up in Lake Zurich, Illinois. And in segment number 2, we'll head over to Atlanta. Executive producer of Southern Sports Today and Chuck and Chernoff on 680 The Fan in Atlanta. Dan Mathews, be a happy man. His Houston Astros are World Series champions. He always says he's an unabashed, relentless Astros fan, as most people in Western Louisiana are. They almost consider themselves Texans, people from Lake Charles on over. Maybe that's debatable with some people, but yeah, they consider themselves to be Houstonians, at least that much. And top of hour number 2, Franz Beard joins us, GatorBaitMedia.com. He'll have a lot to say, as he always does. And in the final segment, Rodney or Tider Insider will call in on the party line, talking about Alabama. A lot of people wondering what's going on in Alabama. Well, when your standard is as high as Alabama's, you've lost a couple of games. On the last play of the game, people start wondering. The question is, what do the players think? I mean, what are they doing to get better? Nick Saban, I just checked. Hold on. Audrey, Nick Saban won't suit up Saturday. No, he won't be playing. It's up to the team to get the job done. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. And we'll be giving you some information during the show about the Cajun Fest, which takes place all day Saturday over at Rhodes College in Memphis. I know Pierre Landash is going to be making, along with Warren A. Bud Ritchie, another great one, going to be making pastillas, gumbo, jambalaya. Look, it's Cajun Fest. If it ever ran, flew, swam, or crawled, it's going to be on a stick, in a bowl, a pot, a plate, and you're going to be eating it and drinking. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, Mitch Davis, man, the world is continuing to spin. It's everything. We're going to keep rolling along, but Alabama's lost 2 games this season. Kentucky has lost 3. They did get the win on the road. I thought Missouri could do it, but they won 21-17. Ole Miss is hosting Alabama, coming off of that loss at LSU. Mississippi State beat Cadillac and Auburn. Get your kicks in now, boys and girls, if you want to beat Auburn, because it ain't going to be this easy very long. Might want to put an asterisk by it. But anyway, interesting. A lot going on in college football. And we had the playoff rankings come out last night. So, Mitch, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. We'll be glad to give you a follow as well. But, Mitch, we're waiting to hear what you have to say. Take us into your mind, if that's possible.
That's been a study of everybody's trying to figure out what goes inside my mind each and every day. Rob, Jimmy, it's good to see you. Guys, it is a wild college football world we live in. I'm excited to be down in Starkville, Mississippi on Saturday to see Mississippi State play Georgia. Should be a really fun matchup down there. I think Georgia will win, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. I'm also going to be in Oxford Friday night to watch Ole Miss basketball take on Florida Atlantic. So it should be a really fun weekend in the SIP, and I look forward to getting back and going to my second home away from home.
Mitch, you've seen in the last 4 years over 200 college basketball games. You're going to be getting the chance to see a lot of games this coming year. In the case of Kermit Davis at Ole Miss, last year they got hit by injuries really bad. We're going to talk some football, but I want to ask you this. They had a good group of guys coming in this recruiting class. How many of them are expected to hit the floor in a meaningful role tonight? Or Friday?
So I talked to Kermit. What was it, 2 weeks ago? I think I talked to Kermit. And
Yeah.
Kermit said all of those guys are expected to get a lot of playing time. He expects to see Matthew Morrell get a lot of playing time for the Ole Miss Rebels. Todd Fagan. Ole Miss is going to have to depend on the front court. I mean, when you look at Ole Miss, was it Monday night against Alcorn State? The Rebels struggled. Ole Miss struggled to contain Alcorn State. Alcorn State had a lot of big men that got a lot of rebounds. Ole Miss is going to have to figure out a way how to get second chance opportunities. They didn't do that last year. Obviously, we saw what they did last year in terms of losing and winning. Ole Miss is going to have to figure out a way how to crash the glass, how to play defense, and just the fundamentals of basketball. I believe in Kermit Davis. I think Kermit Davis is still the right man for the job, but it's also so doggone hard to win at Ole Miss. When you look at their schedule, that they've got a couple more games until things start heating up. They go down to the ESPN tournament down in Orlando, where they'll face Stanford, I think Oklahoma State or Oklahoma, Memphis. I mean, they're going to have some good competition, and then they come back on December 3rd to play the Tigers in FedEx Forum.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Ole Miss. They got Alabama coming to town Saturday. Big game. And it is a big game because Alabama's in the top 10, and you got Ole Miss. I'm looking here at the rankings at number 11. Just for TV purposes, just for clarity, why couldn't they have said a matchup of two top 10 powers? Now, technically, you can't say that. But Ole Miss at number 11, Alabama number 9. What are your thoughts on this game? Who do you think's going to win?
Coming into this game, into the season, I was picking Ole Miss. I thought that this was a trap game for Alabama. Obviously, Alabama's coming off a loss against LSU. We know their record. I think they've only got 2 losses. I don't think they've ever had back-to-back losses under Nick Saban, if I'm not mistaken.
They have. 2013. 2013, they lost kick 6 to Auburn, and then they lost in the Sugar Bowl.
That's right. Thing about it is Vaught Hemingway is sold out. That place is going to be rocking. Alabama really, truthfully, according to their standards, doesn't really have much left to play for. Obviously, they're probably going to go to a New Year's 6 if they beat Ole Miss. If not, they're probably going to go to like a Citrus Bowl. It would be absolutely phenomenal if they fell all the way down to the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, because I would love to be covering Nick Saban and the AutoZone Liberty Bowl guys. But Ole Miss, looking at it, Alabama's going to come in here red hot. They're going to be mad as hell. I like Alabama to win this game. If you would have asked me 3 weeks ago, I'd have picked Ole Miss. But looking at this matchup, Alabama wins on Saturday against Ole Miss.
Be careful of thinking this is your typical Alabama team, that just because they're mad, they're going to get a win. Doesn't work that way. The auto wins, those are out the window. This is Alabama team. Also won on the last play at Texas, and they won on the last play by defending on the goal line against Texas A&M. That typically, you're right. I mean, Alabama, they did come back and shut down Mississippi State until the last second when Mississippi State scored the first touchdown since 2014 in Tuscaloosa. But there's some things missing on this Alabama team. I think Ole Miss has got a shot to win, but I think the biggest thing that who you like at quarterback, you got Bryce Young, you got Jackson Dart. I'll take Bryce Young any day, as long as he's not shutting it down because he's getting ready for the draft. I always worry about a guy if a season and his team is out of the national championship hunt and he's a guy who's eligible to go ahead and go to the NFL. I always worry and make, of these guys, if I even detect it as a fan, that player to me is just forget about him. As long as you're there, and that's what you got to hope for with Alabama, because there's so many NFL prospects on this team, Mitch, is how do they mentally approach the Ole Miss game? I haven't seen Nick Saban look so disheveled, puzzled, and just mad as hell as I have lately. I mean, the discipline, the lack of it, the penalties. Ole Miss has a very good shot in this game. We know Alabama's got talent, Mitch. I don't think it's going to be just because they're mad and they got beat on the last play at LSU. That's not enough to get the win. Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss is pretty good, but I won't be surprised if Alabama wins. But I need to if I'm Alabama, I just want to make sure all my guys are in now that we're out of the college football playoff hunt, for all practical purposes, and the national championship hunt.
Rob, and the thing about it is, and I was saying this 2 or 3 months ago, looking at the schedule, November 12th is one of the biggest days in college football in the state of Mississippi. You have Ole Miss hosting Alabama. You have Mississippi State hosting Georgia. And in the JUCO ranks, you have the state championship between East Mississippi Junior College and Northwest Community College as well on Saturday. Saturday is one of the biggest days in recent memory for the sport of college football in the state of Mississippi. I mean, Davis Wade Stadium in Starkville, where I'm heading, is going to be packed. And then you look across the way, Vaught Hemingway is going to be packed. Ranger Stadium at Northwest is going to be packed.
Yeah.
Saturday is going to be an electric day in the SIP, and I can't wait to be in the state and enjoying college football at its finest.
Well, it'll be fun. Georgia going to Mississippi State. When they went on the road to a Missouri team that I don't think is as good as Mississippi State, they struggled, but good God, they looked so dominant Saturday. If they're anywhere close to that on defense, I don't see Mississippi State getting the win, but if Mississippi State, they'll give them a challenge, but I think Georgia gets that win. Jimmy, I know you got some questions in here. Mitch Davis of the MitchDavisShow.com, and the state of Mississippi is on the clock.
Yeah, well, it should be a very interesting weekend. Georgia is coming off that big win against Tennessee, and you always face the possibility of maybe having a letdown, even though you don't intend it to be that way. Sometimes it just happens. And so they have to be really careful. I remember the last time that Georgia and Mississippi State played, I believe it was Will Rogers' first start maybe in Athens. And it was also JT Daniels' first start as a Georgia Bulldog. That was the first game he had been cleared to play. And it was a 31-24 shootout in Athens. And I think Georgia, you couldn't imagine it now, but I think they won the game because Daniels threw for around 400 yards. Their rushing game was non-existent. And, of course, State had the air raid attack going, and it was a really competitive game. And I think you'll see a situation where Mike Leach, just like Lane Kiffin, is going to be throwing the kitchen sink at Georgia's defense, just trying anything and everything to maybe jump out early and hope for a couple of turnovers and, try to stay ahead in this game. As far as Ole Miss and Alabama, there's just no way of knowing. I mean, we've seen every weekend, everybody has a certain idea of how games are going to go, and we're always wrong. You just don't know until these teams play. But I think, though, and I do know, talking to some Alabama insiders, that it's really important for the seniors on this Alabama team, as well as juniors that are likely to be picked in the NFL draft, to finish this season strong so that they don't be remembered as the team that had that streak of 10-win seasons snapped at 14. They want to extend that, and they have to win 3 of these last 4 games when you count the bowl game to continue to do that. And if they win in Oxford Saturday, they're just about guaranteed to do that. So I think they'd really like to do it from that end. Yeah. But otherwise, I just think the sheer pride of playing at Alabama, and they have a legacy to live up to, and I think they're going to be motivated there. But on the other end, Lane Kiffin's had 2 weeks to get ready for this game. Offensively, he's going to have every arrow in his quiver ready to use against the Tide, and he sees a lot of vulnerabilities in this Alabama defense. I mean, in that 3-man rush, they have not been very aggressive in it. They have not tried to, like I said, line up in different alignments every play, like you saw Tennessee and LSU do against them. Yeah. And, They just hadn't been able to get pressure on the quarterback or make stops when the game was on the line. So it's going to be a really, really interesting game, and I think a really good one to watch.
Yeah, and Mitch, your thoughts on that? I mean, laid a lot out there. Takeaways.
Absolutely, and the thing about it is, and Lane Kiffin would be mad if I didn't say this, but Jimmy, you're saying a lot of rat poison for Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels right now. Obviously, 2 weeks to prepare for Alabama is a long time to prepare. And Lane Kiffin's a heck of a coach. He's gonna find what makes Alabama lose these games to LSU and to Tennessee. And honestly, I mean, when you compare, Ole Miss's offensive unit compared over to Tennessee's offensive unit, it's not as explosive, but it's pretty doggone explosive with Jackson Dart and Judkins and Jonathan Mingo. This Ole Miss offensive unit is very explosive. Alabama's going to have to score some points. The Ole Miss defense has improved over the season. I want to take Ole Miss so bad, but I'm going to go against house money and still stay with Alabama. But Rob, if you text me on Saturday morning, I'll probably have a different response.
Well, look, there's cases can be made on either side. Lane Kiffin's offense, they've been running the ball really well this year. At one point, Alabama was the third best running team in the country. They got Jahmyr Gibbs. Ole Miss has Zach Evans, Quinshon Judkins. Alabama's also got Roydell Williams, another really good tailback out of Hueytown. He'll play. So I don't think that the line in this game is saying, hey, we expect a blowout, that Alabama's going to come in. I mean, Alabama, there is a lot of pride, but I mean, again, we don't have enough evidence yet. How much does NIL affect the players? How hungry are these guys late in the season if they're out of the national championship race? Because that's something, I'm telling you, it's a real problem. We're going to talk about it more after this quick commercial break on Sidelines.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959, right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
All right, Rob Browne back with Jimmy Hodge, Mitch Davis, MitchDavisShow.com. Mitch, looking at the college football playoff rankings, got Georgia number 1, Ohio State number 2, Michigan 3, TCU 4, Tennessee 5, Oregon 6, LSU 7. I mean, look how every one of these, this is exciting because all these teams, especially those top 4, have a chance to go to the college football playoff. Were you surprised that TCU jumped Tennessee and Oregon? Well, Oregon was right behind TCU, but are they an outlier? Do you think they are a legitimate chance to win it all? They've got several big games in the Big 12 they have to play.
I wouldn't say necessarily win it all. I do think that they are a legitimate college football playoff team. I mean, you have to give credit to where credit is due. They've gone undefeated in the Big 12. They've destroyed Oklahoma State. They've beaten Kansas State. I mean, they've beaten they played Texas this weekend. They beat Texas Tech already. You can't fault a team for their conference. I mean, you just can't. I mean, the Big 12 used to be a really good conference, used to be a very competitive conference. You can't fault a team for a conference that they're in. They've won the games they're supposed to win. Obviously, Tennessee lost this weekend. It's all about when you lose, how you lose. Tennessee got embarrassed this weekend. I mean, that's just plain and simple. I thought Oregon was going to jump Tennessee just for the fact that Tennessee got embarrassed, but I guess the committee, Oregon got embarrassed by Georgia too. So I guess the committee
more embarrassed.
Yeah, they did. They got more embarrassed, but it's about what you're doing right now. Tennessee's going to come out on Saturday against South Carolina, rebound this thing, and show the rest of the world why that excitement level was still there for Rocky Top. It's going to be a tough game at Williams-Brice Stadium this weekend. Yeah,
it is. And that will be a game that I don't think is going to be as easy as people might think, but I think Tennessee also is going to go out there and bounce back. The best thing about Tennessee was they didn't quit there late in the game in Athens, and that carries over to practice, and it carries over to this weekend's game. All right, Mitch, right now, give me your if you had to say right now, Lane Kiffin, I don't see him leaving Ole Miss to go to Auburn. What about Hugh Freeze? Hugh Freeze is a guy that, people say, well, would Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, sign off on it? I mean, I don't know. I don't know Greg Sankey. Met him once, twice. Okay. I'm asking you, Hugh Freeze, if you look at the differences compare him in his time at Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin in his time at Ole Miss, Kiffin's a little bit ahead in, yards per game and all these different categories, but would Hugh Freeze take the Auburn job if it was offered?
I 100 have to be careful what I say here. I personally speaking don't think he will. And there's a couple factors. One, the relationship with John Cohen. Obviously, John Cohen was at Mississippi State when all that stuff went down. There is still bad blood between the two. I mean, there just are. As much as they want to deny it and want to say they're men and they've moved on from it, there's still bad blood between John Cohen and Hugh Freeze. There just is. There will always be bad blood between the two. I mean, John Cohen was one of the guys who led the crusade against Hugh Freeze to get him fired from Ole Miss to get Ole Miss in trouble. So there's going to be bad blood.
Yeah.
Too. And Rob, I know you disagree with me. We have talked about this every time I come on the show. But Auburn is not it's a desirable job in some aspects, but it's not a desirable job in others. A lot of people don't want to deal with the crap that the boosters, those boosters, those 3 or 4 boosters that are in charge, a lot of people don't want to deal with that. And honestly, Hugh Freeze is making enough money at Liberty. They built him a house. He's got no expectations at Liberty. He's likely to get Liberty to a New Year's Six bowl this year. I mean, the possibility is right there. Tulane's got to lose, but obviously the possibility is right there, especially being number 19 in the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah, well,
the grass is not always greener on that other side. It's just not.
I agree.
There is a lot of coaches that will take the Auburn job. Matt Rule should be one of those. Dave Arnand at Baylor should be one of those that you guys consider. Lane Kiffin could be considering it. But when you're Hugh Freeze, who's already dealt with the big stage, who's already dealt with the pressure and dealt with what comes along with the fame and the fortune that comes in the SEC, that grass is not always greener. He is in a place that his family's happy. 2 out of the 3 of his daughters have been married there. He's got a big old house there. I think his parents are looking to relocate there. A lot of different things are factors there at Liberty. I would be shocked to see him go to Auburn.
Well, I know he was brought up there by Jerry Falwell Jr. what a guy. So I think everybody knows that you've got boosters everywhere. Some schools are just better at having one voice speak. And, in Alabama, it's Nick Saban. And I know about John Cohen that, Scott Strickland was there. That guy got all that stuff going. And then John Cohen was there to finish it off. And that's what I was asking is, I don't think people remember what all happened between Ole Miss and Mississippi State. What do you want to work for him? And then you look at guys, Dan Lanning, he's in his first year at Oregon. So there are a lot of, Auburn needs to get this one right. And they really need to get it right because
and the thing about Auburn, Rob, is do you want to go, and I love Coach Freeze and everybody knows my relationship with Coach Freeze, but do you want to go down the road where you hire a coach with that kind of baggage that comes with the baggage claim that Hugh Freeze does? Everybody knows the stories. Everybody knows what happened. Do you want to go down that road of having that baggage? And that's what I keep telling Auburn fans is you have to get this thing right. If you don't, you're going to be even further behind Alabama. You're going to even be further behind Ole Miss and, Georgia. You're going to be further behind those programs.
Yeah.
You have to get this right. Why bring in a guy that is going to be scrutinized by the NCAA in every move he makes at Auburn? If he does well at Auburn, NCAA is going to be on your doorstep. You already have that in basketball with Bruce Pearl. Why would you want that again in football?
Well, at the same time, Hugh Freeze could be the football equivalent of Bruce Pearl, a guy who got a second chance at a school with unlimited resources and the most talent-rich area in the country for football. That's a huge plus. And I think what's the NCAA going to go after him for now that it's all legal with NIL? I mean, what could they get Hugh Freeze for? I'm all ears.
Fair point, Rob. But it is going to be interesting. I just don't think Hugh Freeze leaves right now. Again, there's just too much. He's got too much going on at Liberty. I mean, that guy has built a homestead there in Lynchburg, Virginia, and he's happy. I mean, he is truly happy at Liberty, and I get it. Auburn's got the unlimited resources, but the unlimited resources come with, if he goes 8-4 his first year or 7-5, Auburn boosters are going to go, oh, well, did we make the right hire? Then the year two is going to have a lot more pressure. I mean, do you really want to go in and take over the dumpster fire? I am all for Auburn hiring Cadillac Williams. I'm probably going to close with that. That is who I think Auburn should go with. Those players love Cadillac. He loves the program. He can win at Auburn because he gets Auburn. He understands Auburn, just like Penny Hardaway is doing at Memphis basketball right now.
Yeah, I mean, and there's people going to say, is Cadillac, could he be Auburn's Dabo? So we'll see about that. But, Mitch, I know you got to get going to a meeting, but tell people how they can follow you. I just wanted to get your thoughts because I've got my thoughts too on I think. And I think people need, people, they learn in life. They get better. But there's a lot going on in that coaching search. I'm not in the meetings, but you're right. Auburn's got to get it right. They need to get all the boosters rowing in the same direction. But tell them about your show.
Yeah, themitchdavishow.com. I'm going to be having Steve Robertson join me on Friday, talking Mississippi State athletics, talking about the athletics director search for Steve Robertson from Mississippi State. I'm going to be also talking to Jake Rowe from Georgia, from their 24/7 site. Going to be talking to Georgia Mississippi State game. Really excited about that. A lot of great things. Look forward to being down in Starkville, ringing the cowbell this weekend. Catch me in the junction. Going to be down there. Be a lot of fun. Rob, Jimmy, good to see you. Good to talk with you. And I will be in touch with you guys.
All right. Thanks so much. All right, Jimmy, rankings came out last night. Fear the Frog. You got Tennessee right there at number 5. I mean, this is all going to take care of itself. I'm just looking at the rankings. TCU's got to play Texas. Ohio State and Michigan will play one another. That's going to bounce somebody out. Who is the team that's in that top 10? LSU. I mean, there are some that you think has the best path to get to the playoff.
Gee, I don't know. I mean, TCU, I think there's a very real possibility they could lose at Texas this week and at Baylor next week. As a matter of fact, they close out the regular season against Iowa State, a team that's dangerous. I mean, there's a possibility they might not beat any of those 3 teams, but they are on a roll right now. They're playing with a lot of confidence, but, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, this is just a more advanced point of the season where, these college football playoff rankings are even more of a pointed conversation around their water cooler, because it's going to change totally this time next week. I mean, we know there's a really good chance of that, but
I agree.
But I do think Ohio State absolutely has to win out, because if they lose a game, their strength of schedule is just going to kill them. And so there's a lot of pressure on them. And I think the same thing really applies to Michigan. They don't really have any noteworthy wins. I mean, Penn State is, as the season goes on, they don't quite have the full package. They don't have the depth. And I think James Franklin, since he's been at Penn State, is like 1-12, I think, against top 10 opponents. So, they really haven't made that splash on the national scene that I think a lot of their fan base would hope for, but he's certainly getting paid like it. But it's hard to say, kind of. I think Tennessee's in great shape just as long as they win out. They're going to be in. If your only loss is by 2 touchdowns in Athens, you're going to be fine with their number of victories against ranked opponents. I mean, they're fine. I think they're going to win easily in at Williams-Brice this week, because they just have way too many weapons offensively for South Carolina, and I just don't think the Gamecocks can match them as far as being able to put points on the board. So it just depends. I mean, if LSU wins out and they were to win the SEC championship, and with the way they're playing right now, that could happen. Not likely, but they have the talent, they got the confidence, they got the coaching, and if they were able to win out, they will definitely be in the playoff with the even though they have 2 losses, because they've won the toughest league.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Auburn 2017. They win that rematch against Georgia in Atlanta. They went into that game. Auburn was the number 2 ranked team in the college football playoff. They lost earlier in the season at Clemson 14-6, and then lost the LSU game in 2017. One of the more unforgivable losses, along with the 2016 loss at Georgia, but that was Gus Malzahn. All right, next question. Big Ten versus Big 12 this year. Who's a better league top to bottom? I've got my pick, but I want to hear what you say first.
Oh, I'd go with the Big 12. I mean,
good. Okay, I agree.
I mean, they have more teams that can beat you,
Yeah.
If you're not ready to play. But yet every team is capable offensively. And I feel really bad for Kansas, because if they wouldn't have lost Daniels, their quarterback, I think they win that TCU game, because they lost him in the second quarter of the game. And even then, they were one overthrown pass in the flat from going into overtime, and at home with the chance to win. And Daniels, I don't think he has been back. He's still injured. So that really took the air out of their balloon. So there's just so many teams that if you're not ready to play in that league that can beat you, that you can't say that about the Big Ten. I mean, again, facts are facts. And since 1968, they've won a grand total of 2.5 national championships, and that victory against Miami in the Fiesta Bowl, outside of Ohio and the Big Ten, a lot of people will never accept that one, but it will always show up in the record books that they won. So again, the Big Ten, that you just don't have the depth from top to bottom.
Yeah, and I think, we have Bo Carter and Ken Capps bringing us a lot of really good coverage out there in the state of Texas, Big 12 and all. And then look at Oklahoma State. They were a really good team, scoring a lot of points. I think they've lost 3 games in a row. And you made a good case just now. TCU may not win these last 3 games. You got to play Texas. Who wants to play Texas, Baylor, and Iowa State? It may be Matt Campbell's last game as Iowa State's head coach. He may be wanting to have that team playing the best football they've ever played. But I just really am watching this Big 12, and I'm thinking, if they add Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, who knows? But I think that conference has quietly held themselves together. And right now they've got a team in the playoff rankings. And then you look at Oklahoma, first year under Brent Venables. What are they, 6-3? They've struggled. But, man, the Big Ten, outside of Michigan and Ohio State, and what about Illinois? Illinois's got a lot of wins, but Illinois by no means, I'm looking here on the rankings, on the playoff rankings, they're 21 at 7-2. But nobody even considers them to be a really strong program, Jimmy. And we've got about a minute and a half before we go to the break. Brett Bielema's up there, and I'm hearing his name being mentioned. Someone even mentioned his name for the Auburn job. No, I don't think so. But I just think the Big Ten has really fallen. What happened to Tom Allen at Indiana a couple of years ago? He was a very hot commodity as a coach, and they can't keep it going. Michigan State is just, wow, what a mess. We know about Nebraska, but the one you mentioned a minute ago, Penn State, got about a minute before the break. How much longer are they going to keep Franklin?
Well, I think they're going to keep him quite a while. They just extended him, I think, maybe last year. He's making about $7 million. So, nobody's pointing a gun to the head of these head coaches to accept extensions like that. So I think a lot of states throughout the country could follow Mississippi Mississippi's example and just give a maximum of 4-year contracts so that
With a
you don't
rollover,
get
yeah.
stuck holding the bag,
Yeah.
for $90 to $100 million guaranteed. And, as far as Illinois goes, I thought they were on the verge of having a really memorable season. Then they lay an egg at home last Saturday against Michigan State, a Michigan State team that was in total disarray.
Yeah. All right. Hold those thoughts, because Dan Mathews is going to join us from over in Atlanta right after the break. Jimmy Hodge, Rob Browne with you here on Sidelines Wednesday College Football Blitz.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BB for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with you. Jimmy Hodge, Dan Mathews joining us here in just a minute from Atlanta. And I'm with you, man. In the state of Mississippi, Yancey Porter was talking with us yesterday from the Rebel Yell hotline in Oxford. They give you the 4-year contract with a 1-year rollover. So it's like really a 5-year deal, but it's better than these 10-year deals where you give up all the leverage. And I don't know if you're going to see, I'll say this. If Jimbo goes, Ross Bjork goes, because he put that deal together and sold and gave up all the leverage the Texas A&M has. And now you watch, there's going to be a lot of guys hit the portal at A&M this year. And again, I go back to NIL, and it's creeping up. It's starting to pop up all over in social media. You look out there and you're hearing people say the kids aren't as hungry. Well, no, duh. That's what we kept saying. You pay people before they do the work. If you pay your workers on Monday, do you think they're going to show up for work on Friday? Try doing that. That's what's happening with NIL. I don't know why people have such a difficult time grasping this, but you look at the teams like A&M and like Miami who give it out like Halloween candy and they're getting burned. Where's the return on investment? If I'm Luis Rojas, whatever his name is, the trial lawyer down in Miami that's just bankrolling Miami. After what happened last Saturday in Miami, 45-3, they get stomped by Florida State, their biggest rival. I'd be embarrassed to say that I was funding that. There's no excuse. That what that is a fractured locker room, a broken team, unfulfilled expectations with a bunch of guys that are there getting paid that I don't think are serious about winning football games. And you look around you, you got a 20, 21-year-old kid getting this kind of money before he's really done anything. And it's, especially if it's guaranteed, I don't know how the contracts are written. That's what your problems are. You want to know why your team might be struggling? Be honest with yourself and say, if I was 20 years old and I got paid a gazillion dollars, $1 million, okay, and up front, how motivated would you be? Because they gave it to you and it's legal. So that's what we got to watch out for. And there's a lot of problems. Dan Mathews is on with us now over in Atlanta, executive producer. Southern Sports Today with Chuck Oliver, Chuck and Chernoff in the afternoons on 680. And Dan, first off, congratulations on the Houston Astros winning the World Series. Number 2, Dusty Baker. I love it. At age 73, the oldest manager to ever win a World Series title, and I hope he doesn't even think about retiring.
It sounds like he's not going to. I think today they've got a press conference to announce what people believe is that he's coming back. The weird thing is there's reports out there that the general manager has been given a 1-year contract, but the GM meetings are happening in Vegas, and he told the Astros beat reporter for the Houston Chronicle that he wasn't aware of a press conference. So I don't know if they're trying to set up for a Dave Dombrowski situation where you bring in somebody that's going to kind of oversee the baseball be the president of baseball operations, and James Click would be allowed to be the GM of the team, which we all know if there's a president of baseball operations, they're the ones that call the shots. So I don't see why James Click would stick around for that. But you come off a world title, I don't think I changed very much.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Hey, let's talk about your LSU Tigers. And I know Frank Duffy was on with us Monday with a throbbing headache after that LSU win over Alabama. Brian Kelly in year 1 is doing a remarkable job of bringing everybody together. You're not hearing all the distractions that you heard after the first game from Keyshawn Boutte or whatever. And guys get frustrated, but now with Twitter and social media, they got an outlet where everybody has to hear it. But your takeaways from that win over Alabama on the last play of the game, how far has Brian Kelly come from that Florida State ending when they could have gone for 2 and didn't?
Well, one quick thing there, and this is done respectfully, of course. I don't think Boutte was a distraction. I think he was removing distraction was the whole thing that he was striving for, because everybody I've talked with has said model teammate, team first guy, and didn't complain once when the production slowed for him at the beginning. So, he really has been a great teammate, and you started to see that he started to contribute more and more for this team. But no, I mean, what else can be said than remarkable? I mean, just outstanding by Brian Kelly, his coaching staff, and this team. I don't know if I'd said it on here, but I'd said it before. If you're going to get LSU, you better get them now, because already the way it looks like he's recruiting, it looks like he's going to get Ricks. And I can't remember another player that was there on Saturday night that people from social media believed, wow, they seem pretty high on the LSU right now. He's going to finish with the top 5 class, something he never had while he was at Notre Dame. And while the first game of the season was not great, I will say this. I truly believe that the first game of the season happened so Saturday night could happen. Let me explain. I think if Brian Kelly had it to do all over again, he would have said, we just marched 99 yards. Let's strike with the momentum and let's go for it right here. And let's try to win this game as opposed to send it to overtime. And when they took the safe play, it ended up being the worst decision. So Brian Kelly, I think coming off that field, said, I'm not going to put my guys in that situation again. If we're in that situation again, I'm going to trust my guys. And he did, because I think that the benefit of that was, if we lose by 1 point to Alabama, we were supposed to lose by 12 more. So I'm not for moral victories, but you could at least sell it to your fan base of, hey, look, we're close. This thing is getting better and better.
Yeah.
We lost tonight, but in the long run, we're going to win. And he got the best of both worlds. Is he trusted his guys, he was rewarded. And third, it's showing people, hey, we're 7-2 with a roster that's nowhere near where we need to be in order to compete for national titles and SEC championships.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, he's gonna get the latter chance.
Yeah. Dan, and in fairness, Frank Duffy, our friend, said he talked to Keyshawn Boutte after one of the games recently and saw him outside the locker room, just was talking to him, said, man, what a, very, very respectful. And you're right. So I was just talking about when he did after the first game, I'm removing everything for LSU, but you know what? God bless you. Ought to see me. I don't like to lose. I don't like my teams to lose. I do not like it. I don't think anybody should be comfortable with losing. So in fairness, I'm glad you said that. So let's correct it. I mean, and I don't hate Keyshawn Boutte, and I'm amazed at the way they turn this team. They took that stuff that happened early in the season, and you can see Brian Kelly is going to be successful in everything he does.
It's buy-in, Rob. I mean, it's 100% buy-in. Now, look, all of that said, and if I'm stealing your thunder on this week, I apologize.
No, not at all.
This is a sticky situation for LSU this week. They're only a 3-point favorite going to Arkansas.
Yeah.
Sam Pittman and his coaching staff still have a good team there in Arkansas, and it's there in Fayetteville. LSU is going to have a tough one this week. They're going to earn it if they pull off the win this Saturday, because Arkansas is going to play them tough. So I mean, that's something that they can't take for granted. They've got to be buttoned up and ready to go, because KJ Jefferson's a good player. Rocket Sanders is a good player. That's a good offensive line.
Yeah.
Defense is a little banged up, but still, I mean, this is an Arkansas team that's looking for a win this season that they can hang their hat on and say, hey, look, not all was lost. At least we got them and put them, because if they do that, then all of a sudden Ole Miss is back in the driver's seat, and we'll have to see what happens with them in Alabama. So, this is a huge one for LSU. They get this one, then absolutely, I think, UAB won't be a problem. And Texas A&M is just an unmitigated disaster right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I know you only got a couple of minutes. You've got a tight out this morning. So another question before you got to go. Georgia, Tennessee, that dominant performance by Georgia in the first quarter, first half, and then late in the game, after 55 minutes, Tennessee finally gets a touchdown. Why isn't Stetson Bennett, other than the fact that he doesn't have a ton of touchdown passes, but if you look at him as a pure leader, quarterback, doing all that stuff, why is he not a Heisman candidate? And is Georgia good enough to repeat, in your opinion?
I'll start with the second one first. Absolutely, and Saturday proved it. Any remote possibility or any remote chance that Tennessee thought they had, Georgia immediately slammed the door on them.
Yeah.
It was almost, since I got baseball in the brain, we started with the Astros.
Yeah.
It was almost like any chance that Tennessee got a couple of guys on, then Kirby would go to the bullpen and get somebody to come in and snuff out the rally. And that's what kind of Georgia did. You had Tennessee players, and even we had Adam Sparks on from the Knoxville News Sentinel yesterday, who said he's been doing this for 21 years. He has never heard a crowd that loud. Jalen Hyatt, after the game, said, yeah, that crowd was a difference. It was a major difference. And, so that was huge for them. That offensive line didn't know if it was coming or going, because credit to Glenn Schumann, credit to Will Muschamp, because they had pressure coming from every which direction. I think that kind of like LSU, though, it's going to be the same deal for Georgia this week. I don't think that Mississippi State's as much a threat to Georgia this week as I think Arkansas is to LSU. But at the same time, though, too, we know that the Pirate can jump up and get some people. And it's going to be a night game there, Starkville. So that's another situation where Mississippi State can say, we got the Egg Bowl coming up in a couple of weeks. We pull this one off. All of a sudden, we can look at 2022 and say, not that bad. And for Georgia, it completely, really puts them in a bad spot where they're still in a really good spot to be able to make the college football playoff, even with a loss. But I think that they would like to give themselves that soft landing spot of being undefeated, getting to Atlanta, hopefully winning in Atlanta, and then getting the choose to likely stay in Atlanta for the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in the college football playoff semifinal. As far as Stetson Bennett goes, I think that it's just those couple of weeks against Kent State and against Missouri really hurt him. He didn't have good numbers in those games. The interceptions hurt him. A couple of interceptions against Florida as well. Whether his fault or not, it doesn't matter because C.J. Stroud has still played incredibly well. You've had Mac Engel. We're going to have Mac Engel on to talk TCU. Max Duggan at TCU playing incredibly well. You got a host of other players. Bo Nix is playing incredibly well. You got a lot of players who are playing incredibly well right now. Even Bryce Young, even though we're pretty much writing off Alabama for 2022. Bryce Young, I think, is another player. Hendon Hooker, until Saturday, was another guy that I think a lot of people were looking at. So he's doing what's needed for this team. And, that's the funny thing is I'll leave you on this. Tennessee fans trying to say, oh, if the rain didn't happen in the second half. I wrote them back. I said, if the rain didn't happen in the second half, Georgia would have put 54 on you. You weren't winning that game. There was never a moment in that game where I looked at it and said, well, maybe Tennessee – there wasn't a chance. Georgia completely outcoached them, outplayed them, and they just had a better team.
Yeah. Well, it rained on both teams. That's what I told everybody. Hey, and listen, I know you got to go. Let people know how they can follow you. Always love having you on. Look forward to next week.
Yeah, always great to join you guys. It's at Dan Mathews ATL. 1T and Mathews is how you find me. At Chuck Oliver Show is how you find us on the Chuck Oliver Show. Speaking of your alma mater, Auburn, we're going to talk with Jason Caldwell of Inside the Auburn Tigers. There's a lot happening there on the Plains. So we'll get into that with him. Like I said, Mac Engel, who long time has been writing for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. We hadn't talked a lot of TCU this year, so we're going to do that. We hadn't talked a lot of Tulane, and Willie Fritz is doing a really good job there for the Green Wave. So we're going to talk with Jeff Duncan of The Athletic. He's going to join us today. As well as our good buddy Dave Hooker, going to join us in studio from Off the Hook. He is going to join us and talk a little bit of Tennessee Volunteers. So soup to nuts, we're covering it all.
I love it. Thanks so much, Dan.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, you too. Southern Sports today, that'll be on right after us, 9 to actually that is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Chuck Oliver and Dan Mathews, the executive producer. All right, Jimmy, I got some questions for you. Dan was in a tight out, and I knew we only had about 9.5 minutes. I got to ask you this. On what he said about the Heisman, and you made a great case earlier in the game. I've got a series of questions, so we'll be quick. C.J. Stroud, he's got great numbers, but the strength of schedule is not there. Stetson Bennett against Kent State, Missouri, the interceptions against Florida, but in the biggest games, Oregon and Tennessee, he's been outstanding. Why would you not put him, and I'm not knocking Dan, but he made a great case for it, but can you counter that?
Well, I mean, Bryce Young last year, he had to come through every week, especially Alabama with these Northeast media writers that have a lot of clout. If he would have had one off game, they would have been trying to just put an end to his Heisman Trophy candidacy had he not led that 98-yard drive against Auburn at the end of regulation. He would have probably been out of it. And then what he did with that drive, and then they annihilated Georgia the next week, that just clinched it for him. So it's really a week-to-week deal to play it safe and to give yourself a great chance to win the Heisman. You can't afford to have one bad game, and Stroud's had two. I think he didn't play well against Notre Dame in the opener, and I know the weather was a factor in Evanston last weekend, but he didn't have any kind of numbers against Northwestern, and that's a one-win team. So there are a lot of guys that are still, in the running, and maybe some guys that we're not even mentioning right now, because in the last month, a lot of things that can happen can change how this award comes out. But hey, Max Duggan, the TCU quarterback, has to be a a player on the rise, and he's going to have a couple of national TV opportunities to show if he's worthy or not.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy, and that's a great job you just did of laying it out. Max Duggan, he's got it right there in front of him. We know Stetson Bennett does. Hendon Hooker does. C.J. Stroud has the easiest path. All he's got to do is show up big on national TV in Columbus at the Shoe against Michigan. Didn't work out well last year, but he'll be driving his Bentley to the game. We'll talk more right after this quick commercial break.
From Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rodney Orr is going to join us here momentarily. Tighter Insider. It's only $48 a year, folks. Be a subscriber, and they have great message board, message forums, talking a lot of Alabama and college football. And I'm sure that right now, I'm certain there's a lot of conversation on there because Alabama's lost a couple of games, had another couple of close calls. It's amazing how close college football games come down to. Alabama's had 4 that went down to the last play this year. Talk about playing a full 60. You got to do it. Rodney Orr is going to be with us, and we're going to ask him that question. But, Jimmy, in the meantime, I've got to ask you again. You're right about Bryce Young. Back at their own 3-yard line, he takes Alabama 97 yards. But I think he had the Heisman Trophy wrapped up before that. He had a phenomenal season last year. And there are people saying he could be the greatest quarterback, greatest player ever at Alabama. He'll leave without a national championship. Golly, they've had some great ones, but they've won a lot of national championships. So that's C.J. Stroud is a guy that, that same thing with him. I mean, I don't know where he ranks in the all-time great Ohio State quarterbacks, but he's got to be way up on that list. And I think that when you break it down and you start looking, Jimmy, at coast to coast, that name, Bo Nix, that's another reason. I'm sure a lot of Auburn people are saying, wow, you couldn't keep him. He goes out there, hooks back up with Kenny Dillingham, who was there as offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator, whatever, in name only, I guess, with Gus Malzahn when he was a freshman at Auburn. But, man, the job that Oregon is doing in the Pac-12, again, you can't criticize them and punish them for their conference. That's what they're in. But there's a lot of football to be played, and this is just the next really big weekend. Rodney, join us. Let us know when you're on. Do it. Yeah, but Jimmy, I'm going to go back to you. I'm asking you this question when I think about this LSU Arkansas game. LSU's only a 3-point favorite. And we talked about it some this week, but Arkansas got to get a signature win this year. They've got to show, even though they're not going to win 9 games, that they're making progress. We thought we know they have the toughest schedule in college football. But what you're asking is, can can they beat this LSU team? It's the 11 o'clock game, but that line, what is that line telling you? LSU only -3. It's almost like they think it's a draw. It's at home. KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, Arkansas, they've got some players. Do you think the Hogs can do it?
Yeah, I think they can do it. I mean, I know you say all the time that the 11 a.m. game gives the visitors an advantage. I think in this case, it gives Arkansas an advantage because after that Liberty game, everybody's counting them out. And anytime you've got KJ Jefferson, you got Rocket Sanders, and you've been challenged all week in practice by your coaching staff. You're going to be ready to play this game, and LSU's going to be still riding high from the big win against Bama. And you just never know how a roster full of 18 to 22-year-olds is going to handle that, being told by everybody you encounter, your fan base, and everyone else about how great you are. And, these youngsters are human. Some of it can go to your head. And if they're not 100% ready to play, they could find themselves on the short end because, that 11 o'clock game, I think Arkansas would be ready to play this game if it were at 7 a.m. I just think they're going to go out there playing with house money and us against the world mentality, and I think you're going to see them play really well.
Yeah, I mean, historically, Jimmy, and you're making a lot of great points. Arkansas has beaten some really good LSU teams. We go back to probably one of the more well-known ones was back in 2007. When they won in overtime on Black Friday in Baton Rouge, Darren McFadden and the Hogs. That was a great game. And, of course, LSU went on. A lot of things happened. They kept winning, and they played for and won the national championship in 2007 in the BCS now with 2 losses. So, you can make a case, and I'm with you. I think Arkansas can do it, and LSU – all week long, Brian Kelly, first-year coach, same thing with him. He's never seen fans like these LSU fans. And you're going to class, and everywhere you go, you're being told, hey, man, you got this. Y'all are great. You beat Alabama. Man, this is the greatest win. And there's just no easy games, though. And I'm looking at it and saying, well, Arkansas, they beat a playoff team in Cincinnati, but they beat South Carolina, and they're kicking themselves over the loss to Texas A&M. And you got to say, how did we lose to Texas A&M? But you don't want to put so much doubt in your head that you're wondering, are we good enough? I mean, can we do it? Jimmy, one more before Rodney Orr joins us. He just he's running behind a couple of minutes. Real quick one for you. I look at Kentucky. Was it you or somebody on the show a few weeks ago said, Kentucky is they're still Kentucky. They've lost 3 games this year. Has Mark Stoops hit a ceiling, or is he going to do a reset, recharge and go in there? What can he do at Kentucky that he hadn't already done besides go undefeated, which is okay. We'll get into that, but Rodney's on with us right now. But real quick, can Kentucky be a force every year with Tennessee rising and Florida in a rebuild? That's a good question. Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider. I tell you what, I'm sure it's been a fun week for you in Tuscaloosa, and the world. I just checked; it's still spinning. The sun came up this morning, but and a lot of fans. I mean, the best is, and Jimmy, you know this, and everybody, when Alabama loses a game, or they lose 2 games in a season under Nick Saban, which does not happen very often, the dynasty is over. It's over. I mean, those are just people that, they drive by a car wreck and bump into the car again. Alabama inside out. Tighter Insider, what about this team? Who are the leaders that you believe can pull them together, if anything, for the pride of having double-digit wins in every year since 2007 for Coach Saban. Okay. Yeah. Right, Rodney, let me ask. Yeah, Rodney, we're having a technical issue. If you can, hang up and try to call back in. I'm going to send you a link if we can do it. We're just the phone line not working, and so let's try that. Okay. Okay. All right, Jimmy, you heard what I heard Rodney talking. I don't know if you heard his comments, but he's making
I
great.
couldn't hear him.
Yeah. What he was saying about Alabama is Nick Saban's going to have to make some serious changes and look deep into this program. But the last 2 years, he talked about the inconsistencies with Alabama and where do they go from here? I mean, their standards are the highest in all of college football. But your comments on that, we'll try to work things out and get Rodney back on.
Oh, they're going to make multiple staff changes. I mean, I don't see either of the coordinators returning. And there are, I think, a minimum of 2 other spots that I think will be replaced. And, they'll just be doing something that, Saban has grown used to during his, 15 years. This is his 16th season at Alabama. So it's not anything he's unfamiliar with. And we'll just have to see who he selects and, how they affect the program when the new coaches come in. And then you just kind of go from there,
Yeah.
But again, the standards at Alabama are, so lofty that, sometimes it affects coaches too, as well as players. And, but I think you could tell between the lines with his comments after the LSU game that, they certainly have the players, but, the strategy employed, I think, by the coordinators at certain times didn't get the best out of that talent. So, again, we'll just have to wait and see. That's all you can do. You try to finish strong. And then as soon as that final game's over, which will be whatever bowl they play in, then you just move on from there.
Yeah. I want to go back and ask you this one. The last few years, Pete Golding, and it's been all over, they've been all over the place. And I know offenses now are coming at you. They're so sophisticated. And Nick Saban made comments after the Tennessee-Alabama game about they had no idea what Tennessee was doing. And it was very frustrating. You could tell. And you can just see Nick Saban. I mean, he has been the most frustrated I've seen him in a long time. Multiple games. Again, 4 of Alabama's games have gone down to the last play. I mean, that just proof right there that the auto wins and being so dominant and just showing up. I mean, it ain't happening right now, but the rest of the SEC is catching up. Tennessee's a lot better. Georgia is the number one team in the country. They're defending national champion. LSU's rising. Arkansas is pushing. Auburn's got to get a new coach, but Ole Miss is tough as nails. Mississippi State's at 6-3. Jimmy, all right, let's do a couple of series of quick questions. Bill O'Brien, does he come back next year to Alabama as offensive coordinator?
Oh, no way, no how. He's going to be a head coach somewhere.
Yeah.
Be it at the college level or maybe the NFL level, but no, he will not be back.
All right, what is it about the offense that they're running? Is it the plays or is it the lack of a dominant offensive line?
I think it's the lack of an identity in this LSU game. I mean, early on, they were backed up after the opening drive that ended with an interception, and they didn't really stay with the running game in the first half. And then in the second half, when they started to run the ball, they averaged 5 yards a carry. But yet, when they get down close to the goal line, they have a tendency to abandon the run also. I mean, everybody remembers the A&M game last year in College Station where they had first and goal at the 3-yard line and threw the ball 3 times and ended the possession with an interception. And then at the end of the Tennessee game, you're at the 33-yard line. You got 1st and 10 after a big first down conversion. If you just run the ball one time, there's a good chance you're going to get 4 or 5 yards. And if nothing else, and you throw a couple of passes after that without success, a 44, 45-yard field goal attempt is a totally different animal from a 50-yard attempt. And, it's just been a lot of subtle things that just tend to add up. And Saban, after the game, publicly tried to, spare his coaches any criticism by saying that I'm aware of every defensive alignment that's called on every play and every offensive play that's been called, and I have the authority to overrule it and go with something else. And he said, I didn't do it a single time, but deep down inside, yeah, there's tremendous frustration there. I think maybe the most obvious time was after the Reichert missed field goal with 15 seconds left. Alabama put absolutely no pressure on Hooker, and they gained 55 yards on back-to-back pass plays to win the game themselves on a walk-off field goal.
Yeah. And look, Rodney Orr, we had some issues with his phone lines, but we'll get him back on here later in the week or at least next week. But Jimmy, you're talking, you got co-defensive coordinators, Charles Kelly and Pete Golding. And that the defense for Alabama, they've had some games when they were dominant, but you look at the Texas game. I mean, it's like they gave up 50 points. They gave up 19. So you look at Texas A&M. That was a 24 to and they gave up 20, maybe they gave up 21. But the Tennessee game gave up 52. The stress that is put on defenses by the offenses now, because the rules have been changed to favor the offenses. And you're right about Nick Saban. You got to be so careful, I'm sure, as a head coach. I've never been one, but you don't want to be looking over the shoulder of your coordinator on defense or your coordinator on offense. If you micromanage too much and pencil whip them, it'll drive them crazy. You've got to trust them. And I think when you do that, it makes it easier and say, look, I gave you that freedom. I gave you the autonomy. These were the results. They're not up to the standards that I have, the expectations that I have, certainly not the expectations that the fans here at Alabama have. You need to get another job because I'm done, and he'll go out and get a job. It's just, it's interesting watching this Alabama team as they fight through the season, because everybody in this league is coming at you. And you talked about it. I talked about it. We all did. Every time Alabama goes on the football field, you're going to get the absolute best. It's the biggest game of the year. It might be the biggest game ever on campus. It's national focus is on when Alabama's playing. And Jimmy, that I don't care what anybody tells you, that is a ton of pressure, and it can break you. You think about in basketball how many times Kentucky plays, and whoever the hot team is, but those expectations, you either rise to the occasion or the burden of those expectations keeps you down. It'll bury you is what will happen. But Bill O'Brien, I know what he did at Penn State. He kept them from going into the abyss of just irrelevance after the Joe Paterno mess. He went to the Houston Texans. So he's got some NFL experience. And Nick Saban, I'm just wondering again, and I really, really, really wish Rodney was on here with us talking about it, but you know Alabama football, and I watch them closely. Jimmy, before Franz Beard of GatorBaitMedia.com joins us in a minute, I don't see Nick Saban retiring. He just signed that 8-year deal. I think this is year 1 or 2 of it. He's not retiring, but I do see that he's frustrated, and I think he may start taking more of a hands-on approach going forward because he just dropped a lot of hints about, yeah, I saw everything. I know everything that's going on, but I think he comes out more dialed in and more focused and more energized Saturday in the Ole Miss game. And if you don't see Alabama on all cylinders clicking and a lot more sharpness, then maybe there is reason to be concerned about Alabama and where this team is and have they checked out?
Well, if they're not focused and they don't play with energy on Saturday, they're going to get blown out because Lane
Jimmy,
Kiffin.
Sorry about that. We missed a break. We're going to take that break. We're going to be right back, and I'm going to go straight back to your question after this.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Hagen, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Hagen, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
Now more than ever, it is so important to shop local and to buy American. For 60 years, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company has been on the historic Collierville Square, and we strive to sell made in the USA products when available. With over 7,000 pairs of Western boots and work boots in stock for men and women, come and see our huge selection of clothing, jeans, and accessories from top brands made in the USA. Please support local business and come shop with us at Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. God bless the USA.
All right, Jimmy, get caught on that break. You were giving a great answer about Ole Miss Alabama game Saturday. So let's go because you were onto something.
Well, again, I mean, Kiffin's been getting ready for this game, if not before, obviously, the open date came up. In the back of his mind, back as long as spring practice, Alabama's always in the back of his mind because he wants to get that first win against Nick Saban. I mean, as do all of Saban's former assistants. And he sees a great opportunity here because, again, Bama has shown some weaknesses throughout the year. And, it starts with the lack of a pass rush in so many instances. And with the talent that Alabama has defensively, personally, I just don't think Golding has been nearly aggressive enough with his schemes and allowed those guys to play and move them around to different positions on the field so that the offensive lineman, the quarterback, has to know where Will Anderson is on every play, because against LSU and Tennessee, they knew where he was every play because they didn't move him around. So it makes it easy to double team him and make it look like Anderson, is just having an off year. But it hasn't affected his status with these NFL scouts and ratings guys like Mel Kiper and the other draft experts, So again, they think he's going to might still be picked the number one guy because they know when he gets there, he's going to be used by NFL coordinators in a way that's going to make him the most effective player he can be. And I think in a lot of instances this year that has not been the case.
I absolutely agree with you. And I'll just rewind it here a few seconds. You nailed it. It's lining him up where he can be most effective, and they're not doing that this year. That's on the coordinator. You got Dallas Turner, you got Henry To'oTo'o. You've got a lot of really good players. And in Alabama, you look at Quinnen Williams now in the NFL. I mean, who was Quinnen Williams in his junior year? He ends up being the number 3 pick in the draft. Great defensive lineman in Alabama out of Winona High School there in Birmingham. Well, you look at the alignments that Alabama's using on defense. Great. You're not creating opportunities for Will Anderson to get to the quarterback, and people do. If you make yourself predictable and you're not doing any self-scouting, Jimmy, bring Franz Beard on in here, you're going to be shut down. And I agree with you. I don't think the draft stock of Will Anderson has gone down. I think what it is a reflection of is the lack of imagination by Alabama's defensive coaching. And you nailed it, Jimmy. Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com, 6'1.5" sophomore from Gainesville, Florida, teammate of Tommy Petty. Last Dance with Mary Jane. Man, that guy, we forget he's from Gainesville. I mean, I always knew he was, and he's the patron saint of the Gator Nation. We won't back down. But GatorbaitMedia.com's Franz Beard puts out his daily thoughts, one final pithy thought on GatorbaitMedia.com. I suggest you subscribe. If you're a Gator and you love the SEC and college football, just to read the thoughts of Franz Beard and Buddy Martin. And you get Ben Troop on there and the Buddy Martin Show Monday through Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, Facebook and Twitter. It is great conversation on the video, and they've just got cool sets. Now, I'll go back and say, Frank Duffy, Franz Beard, you as well, are perhaps the world's most interesting Gator. So let's talk some college football right now. What's going on down in the swamp? Gators went out there to Aggie Land and got a convincing win on the road. I don't care. A win on the road in the SEC against anybody is cause for celebration.
Well, I think it all started with they played defense with the offense, and that's exactly what Billy's been needing to do. They controlled the ball for 37 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's the Aggies weren't on the field. Florida's defense wasn't on the field, more importantly. In the second half, these guys, the lights went on. The defensive coordinator figured out a couple things, changed a couple things. The kids were not tired and gassed in the second half as they had been, and they dominated the game. Florida, in the last 3 games, Florida has not turned the ball over. The Gators have forced 7 turnovers, so they're +7 in the turnover department. And more importantly, they've won the last half of both games. Now, here's an interesting stat, guys. Florida has, if you take the second half of Georgia and the second half of the Aggies, Florida has a 38-14 score advantage. Florida has 551 yards to the opponent's 311 advantage. Now, what does that tell me? That tells me that if these guys could ever play a full ball game, they're probably going to be pretty darn good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. Maybe the third quarter of the Florida-Georgia game was when the light bulbs came on. They were flickering, but they came on, and then they flickered a little bit late. But I think that was the point, I think, where the Florida guys have begun to really, really, truly buy in to what Billy Napier is trying to do, because they looked like they were very confident on the road out there against Texas A&M. And I don't care what kind of mess Texas A&M is, those guys will at least try the first half.
Well, we forget that no matter what kind of mess they're in, they're all a bunch of 5-star and 4-star guys.
Exactly.
Uh, Ron Zook coined the term Jimmys and Joes. They got a lot of Jimmys, a lot of Joes, a lot of Billy Joes, and a lot of Billy Jimmys out there.
I mean, that was hey, there's 56 4- and 5-star players on that A&M roster, and they lost in the first game when they were ranked number 6, which I didn't ever buy into it. When they lost at home to Appalachian State in the first game of the season, second game they lost at home. App State had one player on the entire roster who was rated a 4-star. So there you go. They're underwhelming. Underachievers. And I think, Jimmy, jump in here, but we've been talking about Alabama right before you came on. Jimmy, what are you seeing out of the Gators at this point in the season? They got several games left. What are you seeing out of them that's making you think? Because I think something happened in the Georgia game, even though they lost, the players are really starting to get it with what Billy Napier is trying to do.
Yeah, I think as Dennis Franchione terms his first season at the different schools he's coached at, this is year one. Billy Napier knew from the day he got there, this was going to be a daily occurrence of evaluating his roster. And once spring practice began, working on the field with these guys, and then just trying to figure out his personnel, what guys needed to be at what positions to make this team the most competitive that they could be, and that there were going to be ups and downs during an SEC season. He's been prepared for that. He knows he has a young quarterback with a very high ceiling, but he's a work in progress. And he's had to deal with that because we know that quarterback is the most important position in this day and age in college football. And he's done a great job of just handling Richardson and realizing that he's not a guy that can get yelled at. He has to just explain to him in a calm manner, not only on the sideline during games, but also on the practice field. This is what you have to do to be successful. Just trying to get the basic fundamentals down and trying to recognize what he sees from the time he gets up to the line of scrimmage, to recognize coverages. And then after the ball snapped, how important it is to make quick decisions. And even if it might be the wrong one, you have to do something. If nobody's open, you got to decide to tuck it down and run. Just all kinds of different things like that. And his coaching staff is doing the same thing with the entire roster. And I think in the last 2 or 3 weeks, this hard work is starting to come to fruition in regard to the fact that you can tell they are significantly improved from what we saw earlier in the season.
Yeah. Great. I agree. Friends, look at these Gators, Anthony Richardson, and Buddy Martin and you and different people. Y'all are very close to Florida. Anthony Richardson, he comes back next year. I think he's eligible to leave now, but he comes back next year with a year under his belt with some really good coaching. The Gators then become a force in the East. But he is so talented. It's going to be hard. Where does he project in the NFL draft?
One NFL scout told Matt Hayes that he is a first-day guy, which means first round. And Matt Hayes is about as well connected as any writer in the country when it comes to college football. And I think he is a first-round talent. Now, is he a first-round guy as far as ability to get it done? Dorian Thompson-Robinson out at UCLA from the very beginning was a first-round talent. But it took till this year for him to become a first-round quarterback. And that's what he is now. The small game he played against the Aggies was very, very revealing, because what he did that first round against the Aggies, particularly in the second half, was he read defenses, he processed the information, he saw what was going on and made right decisions. And that's the maturing process. I think a week ago on this show, I said he is a great athlete playing quarterback. He's not a quarterback who happens to be a great athlete. That's starting to change now. And I think that's going to be the key moving forward for the Gators, is he's going to have to truly become a great quarterback who happens to be a great athlete as well. Don't know for sure when that's going to happen, but I think that the corner's been turned, and we're going to see more good and less bad as we move forward.
All right, now internally, some guys are off the team for the Gators. If you had to give me a percentage of the roster that Billy Napier would probably like to get rid of for a lot of reasons, what's a percentage? 20%, 30%, more, lower?
Well, I'll make an analogy for you. In 2018, his roster goes 7-7. At Louisiana. In 2019, there are 39 guys who were eligible to be back on the roster in 2019, who were either, working the drive-through at McDonald's or selling furniture or maybe playing football someplace else, or possibly just going to school. 39. Well, numbers tell me that this team, he's going to have to trim at least 35 guys off the roster. That's a lot, but you look at, I went through the roster the other day and then compared it to participation that they have. It's not going to be that hard. Plus, he's got 17 guys. Now, you only got 3 seniors on the team, but he's got 17 guys who are going to graduate, because Saturday's senior day.
Yeah.
So he's got 17 guys who are graduating. And when I get that list, I'll tell you how many of those guys are guys that I thought from the beginning might be categorized under the dead weight, whatever you want to call it, or nice kids who aren't going to participate, let's just say.
Son, you ought to focus on your studies. That's what they used to say on those coaches shows. And how's old Franz Beard doing? We live down here in Pine Level, Alabama. Well, I think he needs to focus on going to class. He's a good young man, and basically, he's not going to play. Well, it all works itself out. Friends, the Gators in recruiting right now. We know about the big deal over in Lakeland. Miami is giving out a ton of NIL money. Florida's got a powerful NIL, the Gator Collective. What is it right now? What are you, 7th or 8th in the nation in recruiting in this first year under Billy Napier? Where does that put you in the SEC? 4th, 5th?
4th.
Okay.
8th overall, and I believe it's going to be, I think Florida's going to finish 5 or 6. Wow. Which anything inside 8 is really good,
Yeah.
Because that means you're getting really good players. Cormani McLean, the word on the street is that he got $500,000 of NIL money immediately, and the promise is for $500,000 a year for minimum for every year he's at the U, and that's EWE, not you, not this. It's EWE.
Yeah.
And believe me, he's a kid that I'll tell you right now, he will be in the transfer portal within a year.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a bunch of kids in the transfer portal within a year at Miami, and there's going to be a bunch of them going there now.
Yeah.
And for all the success they're having at Florida State, I can tell you right now, there will be a lot of those kids in the transfer portal, and a lot of their good kids in the transfer portal for one basic reason: they have no money. Remember that great line by Struther Martin coming down the mountain in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, when he says he's Percy, his name's Percy, and Percy says they ain't going to shoot you when you're coming down the mountain because you have no money.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting. We're about to go to a break, but you're right. Florida State, they've got to do something. They've got to get a collective. They got to do, but everybody that in recruiting, there's the December signing period. Then there's the portal raid, which starts December 5th. More after the break.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett and Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com is with us. Jimmy Hodge up in Lake Zurich, Rob Browne here in Wynne. You look at what's going on at Florida. Billy Napier, very methodical. He's got almost as many people in support roles on his staff as he does players on scholarship. And everybody's got money now. TV deals are big, but the ACC's deal is not that big. And Miami and Florida State they don't have that money. Now, the NIL money is at Miami. And you look at what's going on down there, and they're Rujas is giving everybody $6,000 or $8,000. Is that a year? Is that per month or whatever? But do you see the similarities, Franz Beard, between what's going on with giving out the candy, the NIL money at Miami? Same thing at Texas A&M. Did you see out of A&M guys fighting, diving for loose balls, tackling, playing with discipline, playing with their hair on fire? Did you see that out of A&M either? Like you didn't certainly see out of that Miami team that got curb stomped at home 45-3 to Florida State. I think this NIL, you made a comment earlier, because I've been railing about it since the beginning, because I deal with wealth management with people. Nobody in their right mind gives a 21-year-old kid $10 million or $1 million. Make them work for it. Okay? And there's an old saying about wealth transfer. First generation employs, the second enjoys, and the third destroys, unless you make them work for it. So I want to hear your pithy thoughts on this matter.
Well, here's the thing that Miami can do. They can throw all the money they want to at kids and think that will make them overlook the fact that they've got the worst facilities. I'll tell you something. You want to talk about facilities? Go up to Liberty. Liberty's facilities dwarf what they have at FSU and at Miami. Now, yes, Florida State does have a good stadium on campus. I'll give them that. But Liberty's got better facilities overall. A&M is going to ultimately succeed, maybe not with Jimbo, but with somebody else. They've got facilities and they got money and they got the SEC. Florida State and Miami are in the ACC. whose media rights deal is not going to be renegotiated by ESPN. And yet, ESPN is negotiated with the Big 12, and the Big 12 is going to be having more money in a league that loses Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. They're still going to make more money than the almost competitive conference.
Yeah.
The Pac-12 has no money, and they think they're going to get a big deal. And the only way they're going to get a big deal is they're going to have to say no to Fox, and they're going to have to say yes to ESPN. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, because I don't think that there's enough ball games for ESPN and its networks to broadcast. You can have the Saturday night late night game, and you can have the Friday night game, and you can have that occasional game in the Pac-12 that matters. But the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12 are the three conferences that are set up for long-term success. And the Big 12 is going to be the redheaded stepchild, because their deal is going to be, when they count in the playoff money and bowl money and everything like that, they're going to be making maybe $50-55 million a year, maybe 60 even. The SEC, with 16 teams, is going to be giving $100 million a year per school. The Big 10 is going to be giving about 90.
Well, the upfront deal for TV that everybody saw that figure, was it 6-7 billion? Where's this stuff coming from? I mean, there's a lot of people in the Big 10 footprint. I think Jimmy pointed out, with Southern Cal and UCLA coming on board, I guess there's a lot of people that come to those games out there disguised as aluminum seats, because they ain't there physically. But they're going to have the Big 10 footprint will come, touch about 70% of the United States. I think those Big 10 numbers, they don't make sense to me. That much more people. I mean, I guess so, but the Big 12 passing up the ACC, why they've still got Jim Phillips as commissioner,
Jimmy,
is the reason why they're where they are, because there's so many schools over there, not just in football, but basketball, baseball. They're competitive, and they need leadership. I mean, any conference can go in the ditch if you've got somebody driving that's not looking ahead. Then they can't look out of the rearview mirror. They got to look ahead, and they're not doing it.
Well, I think Jimmy would agree with me that you take the money that they've just added to the Big 12, and then you throw in Houston with that bunch, and Cincinnati potentially, and BYU very good, and you have the strongest basketball league in the country, even without Texas and Oklahoma. You have now, because you got Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, Houston. That's a really good league. K-State's going to be good this year. And by the way, did you see that Keontae Johnson scored 13 points for K-State Monday night? He played for the first time since December 12th, 2020. Jimmy, I see you shaking your head, and I agree with you.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, and it tells you too just how far we've advanced in sports medicine, and how you can, how these medical experts, have the skill to, guide these young athletes that have had life-threatening developments to get back to being able to perform at that level. It does make you shake your head. It's just amazing, really.
Well, he's another one of those kids that played for Boo Williams on the AAU circuit, and goodness, you look in the NBA, Boo's certainly got a legacy there of players that go to the NBA. But my point being is this: the Big 12 is going to come out really good because they are a better basketball conference than the ACC. The ACC is is, was, and will always be North Carolina, Duke, and all the other dwarfs. Syracuse is, Syracuse sell-by date expired a long time ago. Boston College was and never will be again. I mean, Wake Forest Gump, as much as I love Steve Forbes, he's got Apple turnovers. Tyree Appleby starting at point guard for him now. And Tyree Appleby, who discovered that you can make a perfect pass to the people in the third row, but they may not be able to shoot and make the shot.
Yeah. Well, the ACC's really been a complicated situation, because when Jim Phillips took over the commissioner position, the league was already about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years into that contract with ESPN, because John Swofford at the time was really boxed in. He had to sign that long-term deal because even back then the Big Ten was threatening to poach some of the top ACC schools. So he chose to pick long-term survival over a 15-year deal that he knew was going to come back to bite them as long as they could not get expansion, because the only way they can do anything about that contract is to add a couple of teams. And that's why they've been trying really hard to convince Notre Dame to do so. But the only league Notre Dame's going to join, or the only two possibilities, if it were to happen, and it doesn't appear that it will, they appear to be working something out with NBC to stay independent, but it would be either the Big Ten or the SEC. So the ACC just has kind of a long road ahead. And I think one of their big obstacles is trying to keep these football focused schools from leaving to go to the SEC or the Big 12. I mean, so they're in for a long haul in the ACC, and I think their survival is in question down the road. But I think the one unsung hero that people tend to overlook in regard to where the Big 12 is right now is Bob Bowlesby. Because when Texas and Oklahoma announced that move to the SEC, everybody thought the Big 12 was done. And he was upset for a day or two, but he went back to work. And to be able to bring in UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, and BYU, I mean, it was just it was just brilliant work. And then when Brett Yormark came in with his TV background, it was a brilliant move to sign a 6-year deal so that you don't get locked into it too long, because with the SEC, when their new deal comes in place, 10 years is still a long time. And the TV money could grow to the point that after 4 or 5 years, the SEC could be saying to themselves, gee, we should have only signed a 5 or 6 year deal so we can renegotiate. So the Big 12 is going to be able to renegotiate again while the SEC is tied up in that 10-year contract. So what the Big 12's done over the last a year and a half has really been impressive.
Yeah, Jimmy, along those lines, I'll throw this to you, Franz. How long was that deal the SEC had with CBS for only $55 million? I mean,
15 years.
Yeah, it's a 15-year deal. That's okay. I thought that was I mean, long term. Okay, it's a guarantee. You're going to end up making in a little over a year what you made in 15 years with this contract that runs out in 2023, Franz.
Every school in the SEC got $3 million off the CBS deal.
God.
Now they're going to be getting 20. So it's plus 17. So look at it like this. Last year, the SEC distributed $56 million. So add 17 million to that.
Yeah. All right,
73.
Franz, yeah. Question for you. What's the tax treatment on that money? And also, that's a lot of buyout money to buy out a lot of bad coaching hires. And when are we going to start holding presidents, athletic directors, board of trustees, search firms? You know what I'd do with a search firm? I'd pay them for some names, but really, as a president, as an athletic director, that's your job, is to know who the top coaches are out there. And a search firm, Franz, very likely is going to throw the names of their friends, their golf buddies, people that they hang out with in the mix for a couple of reasons. One, maybe they're under a lot of pressure at the school where they are currently working, and they want to help them out, and they get a raise because they stayed and they didn't leave. And number two, they may have ulterior motives outside of that. They may not want to help you. I'd be careful, and I'd say, look, we appreciate your input, but I'm going to go in my office and put my head down and focus on hiring the best fit at my school. But there's got to be accountability. You can't have Washington where, 50 to 75 billion. Well, that 25 billion, it could be 50, could be 75 billion. That's a lot of money. Well, that's what I'm saying. You're getting these gigantic TV contracts, and we need to put together a list of what every school in the SEC, and we know the ones that are the biggest offenders, the worst offenders, that are spending 50, 60, 70 million dollars in the last 5 or 6 years on buyouts for coaches, their assistants, and bringing in new coaches and their deals. And the people putting together these deals, that's malpractice. And if you run a real business like that without, a state university, you've got a lot of tenured employees that can hide behind their tenure. In my world, Jimmy, Franz, all of us, you don't produce, you're on the street, man. 2-minute warning, get out. I think if we did it that way, a lot of these hires that are made would never be hired. I mean, do you think Mel Tucker would have gotten $1 gazillion after one decent season at Michigan State? No. And this TV money, it's really just buyout money.
Well, I'll tell you the answer to the first little part of your question.
I'm going wild.
Okay. If let's just say I'm John Cohen at Mississippi State. I pick up my phone right here and I go Jimmy Sexton, okay? Punch in his number and I call him and say, Jimmy, as you know, we have just fired our coach and given him $15.5 million, never to coach again here at Auburn University, and he has gladly accepted it. And that's after the $21.4 million that we paid Gus, and that's after the $8.9 million that we paid Gene Chizik, and that was after the $5.4 million that we paid Tommy Tuberville.
Yeah.
But being that we haven't been so smart and we've used a search firm in every one of those after every one of those buyouts, I have a better idea. You tell me who you got that wants to come coach at Auburn. Yeah. And if Jimmy says, well, you know what, John, we're just full up right now. We ain't got any prospects for you. Then I call Trace Armstrong and I say, Trace, I'm going to tell you the same thing I just told Jimmy Sexton. Who you got? And forget the search firm.
Yeah.
Go with the agents know who can come and who can't. And for example, if you call Jimmy Sexton, I guarantee you he's got a list of 4 or 5 guys right now who would take the Auburn job. And if the agent says it's a good fit, chances are it is. I think Jimmy, you've been around basketball long enough to know that if you deal with the agent, you're going to get the right fit.
Yeah. We got less than a minute to go, but no, I totally see where you're going with that. It's just that you gotta be careful, and there needs to be more thought, and there needs to be that accountability factor. That's the bottom line. But man, Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com, great conversation. About out of time. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us, and go out and help people with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Just give to give. And no matter what you may think is going on around you in the country, every day is an opportunity to get better. We live in the greatest country in the world because we, the people, love Sidelines. We'll be back with you tomorrow as we are every Monday through Saturday. Again, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. Until tomorrow, have a great one. We're out of here.